Hey, what's up? This is Josh. I play guitar in the band Northlane, and I'm going to quickly run you through my rig today.
So let the world rise. So let the world.
It's kind of built around these two pedal boards you can see here. Starting with this board, which is like my pre-board, I guess you could call it. And the heart of it is this thing, the RJM Mastermind PBC, which I use as a MIDI controller and a true bypass looper. It's really, really good. It's programmed into a set list where I have my songs mapped out, and it sends an automatic tempo for the song, which is a constant MIDI clock to all my pedals. And then the songs are divided into presets. So for most of the show, all I'm doing is going next preset or whatever. I can override the tempo if I want to. I've got a mute for the tune, a freeze for freezing delays and stuff like that, and a couple of other things I'll use throughout, turning gates off or filters or whatever. For a tuner, I'm using a Polytune 2 that's always being fed, just a mini one. And this really good looking Mission Expression pedal here is just for my volume. The input starts at this thing right here, which is a Radial Big Shot input selector. And what that does is let me choose between my wireless and just a lead in case my wireless goes down or I'm just playing at home. The wireless I'm using is pretty cool. It's one of the new Shure digital ones, and it's got lithium-ion batteries in it, so it recharges itself, and it's digital, so it sounds just like a cable. It's pretty incredible. And the pedals I have on here are a ISP Decimator 2 for a gate, an Empress Fuzz, which we use a little bit. It's pretty cool. Seymour Duncan 805 overdrive, and another overdrive which is a Free the Tone Red Jasper, which is like a spongier sort of sounding one, like a Klon type overdrive, so for the juicier sort of stuff. Sometimes I chain two together. Anyway, from there I have Loom, which is just audio and MIDI and power. Passes through into this board here. And then the signal goes into my Kemper, which kind of acts as my amp. I get all my tones from that. And the main amps I'm using are a VHT Ultra Lead Pitbull. I have a Kerry King JCM 800, a AC30 Top Boost, and a Fender Deluxe. So different sorts of sounds and gain levels and whatnot. I do use the delays and reverbs on this. And when I do, they go straight to this line mixer, and they're completely wet. And they're one of the three lines that pass through into this. I'll get to the other two. So I have the outputs, like I just said, the delay and reverb, and the other one's completely dry. The dry signal passes through to this thing here, which is a RJM mini effect gizmo, like a true bypass looper. And the first bay I have on that is this thing here, which is a Strymon Mobius modulation. And there's two places I use that. The first one, which is the first bay on this, is affects my entire signal except for the Kemper delays and reverbs. So if I turn it on there, it'll affect everything. After that, I have a dry send that goes to here, which is just raw amp tones. So all my rhythm stuff, I'm using that. Sometimes I'll use it with other lines too. After that, I have the timeline routed, which is my delay pedal. That goes back in. It comes out into the Mobius again if I choose to use it, if I want to affect my delay repeats with modulation. Then that passes back in and goes to the Big Sky, which is routed to that as the third line. So I can use any one of these three lines at the same time if I want to, or all three, which I do for some tones. This thing mixes it down into one signal, which is a RJM mini line mixer. Passes into the micro hush to just clean up any garbage. Like if there's dirty power, I have to turn it up, but most of the time it doesn't really do a whole lot. And then my signal passes into the JDI duplex, which sends DIs to front of house. I have 2 of those, and a 1/4-inch signal to my power amp, which I'll show in a minute. This other thing here that's kind of tucked away is a Free the Tone MIDI through box, and the way that works is my MIDI's sent from this pedal board to that, and it splits it up into 3 parallel signals. So only 2 pedals at a time are in series, which gives you much faster switching. And eventually I'll get another one of these and it'll be even better. From there I have my second loom, which is connected, which has power sends for the Kemper, the power supply on this, and the power supply on that. The power supply on that passes through into this loom, and they're sent from my rack, which is where this loom goes to. So I've got the 3 power and the 1/4-inch. So we'll quickly go over to my rack. What I've got here is the Furman, which is powering the stuff you saw on there. Under that is a DBX EQ, a Matrix GT1000 power amp, and my patch bay, and then just a spare power amp. So what happens is, right here is the inputs from my loom that you would have just seen on the other end. The front of house ones just get passed through to here and here to be used at front of house. They're labeled dry wet, but they're both the same. And then I got my cab out, which is just the 1 cab signal now. I used to do some other stuff and I haven't really reworked it because it's fine. So the power amp signal gets fed to the DBX EQ. Because I can't bypass the cab on my Kemper, I kind of have to muck around with the EQ a bit to get it to sound like right through the cab, and that's because all my effects are routed in post. So if I took a non-cab send, then you wouldn't hear any of that. Goes into the Matrix power amp. I used it in the bridge mode, and then straight out and front of house, and that's it. I'll quickly talk about my guitars. Firstly, let's start on this side. There's a Jackson B7. This one's a bolt-on. I've actually found I prefer their neck through. Like I normally prefer the sound of a bolt-on, but the way Jackson do their neck throughs is different, I think. I haven't sanded one back to see how it's constructed, but I feel like they've got a lot more maple on them than you usually get, so they're like way punchier. But yeah, this is a bolt-on, older body, maple neck, ebony fretboard, 27-inch scale. I bought this as stock and it's had a bunch of modifications. The first one you can obviously see is the paint. I had the neck pickup filled in and rerouted for a single coil, which is what I prefer. And then had the body swirl painted. And the guy that did that was Charles Celia. He's an amazing luthier from Sydney. He also has his own brand of guitars called Celia Guitars. I changed the tuners on this to the Hipshot open gear locking ones. I've changed the selector to a Damasio, I think it's a 4-pole one, but the reason why I've put this one in is because when I have the middle pickup position selected, I'm able to split the humbucker, and that in turn with the single coil in the neck gives you a hum cancelling tone, and it's really quacky, like the kind of reminds me of position 4 in a Strat with the reverse polarity middle. It's interesting tone. The nut's interesting on this guitar. You might want to take a look at that. It's this new thing that Charles was working on, and what it is it's a compensated nut, like I can't remember who makes them like stock, but what he does is he takes your tuning and your gauge of strings and measures the offsets on your guitar, and then CNC programs his nut and cuts it out of any material you want, so it's like a custom compensated nut for you. And I've only just started using them, but they're really, really cool. It's bone, I prefer that. Now for the other electronics, I've set this up with 2 volumes, so I've got a 280K bare knuckle custom pot for the neck and a 550 for the bridge, and they're made by CTS. I can't say too much about these pickups because they haven't been released yet. They're not Blackhawks. And this one's a Alnico 5 magnet, and that's actually a ceramic in the neck. We've got the strap on it, and she's a little dirty. She's my favorite. Essentially the same as the other one I just showed you, just with the gorgeous seafoam green finish. This one for some reason has a slightly thicker neck than my other ones, and I think that has something to do with the tone, because it's just got this like really chunky low mid to it. It almost sounds like it's made out of like a light mahogany. Really, really weird guitar, and it's just feels awesome, sustains better than any of my other ones. It's a bolt-on B7 as well, but I try and play that as much as I can. There's one feature I forgot to tell you guys about actually, and another modification I made to these, and that's Charles also put glow-in-the-dark side markers for me. It helps quite a bit. Now, one of the things I get asked about a lot on this guitar and sometimes complimented on is the color, and Charles Cillier, the guy that refinished it, absolutely nailed it. He did an incredible job. We got the color from it was either a 50s or 60s seafoam green Stratocaster, which is one of my favorite colors. Like, I'm a huge fan of the older like pastel Fender colors. I think they're beautiful, and I'm a huge Strat guy, so that's why I chose to use a single coil in the neck actually. But what happens in those guitars is the nitro cellulose top coat, like the clear on top of the paint, over time will fade from exposure and become yellow sort of. So you get this interesting yellowish tinge to the paint that just develops over time. And like, I'm a sucker for vintage stuff, and I wanted my guitar to look like that, so we took that color swatch and recreated it on this guitar. And that's why people ask me like, oh, I've seen a seafoam but not like that, so that's where that one comes from. Unfortunately though, as you can see down here, there's a pretty ugly chip. That happened the first time I took it on tour. I went to the US, and I had a connecting flight from New York to, from LA to New York, which is a pretty long flight. And I think when we got to LA, the TSA took all my guitars out of the case, which is this one here actually. And as you can see, like, if you don't have these properly secured, even though like we put padding and stuff, like the guitars were like this and like that, and just like all over the place, just like bumping around, and it had a really nasty chip on the bottom, and there's a couple up the top too from that flight. And it was the first time I ever took it on tour, but I haven't touched it up because it tells a story, and I like my guitars to have a bit of character to them.
I am one.
This is my last one, so this is a little different to the other ones. I just got asked I needed some more guitars for touring. I'm trying to spread them out around the world so we don't need to fly as many. And this is a much cheaper one than the other two. It's a Jackson Soloist. I wouldn't be able to tell you what model it is because it's got so many letters and numbers in it. But this one's neck through. I've actually sanded back the paint on the neck because I hate it. But it's got the same pickups as the other two. Offset nut as well, but different tuning, so it looks a little bit different. I haven't changed the tuners yet, but I want to, because I hate tuners that don't lock. They make my life too hard. This one's actually got basswood wings, which I don't really like as much as older. To me, it sounds a bit too snarly instead of full. Maple fretboard's quite nice, so this one's got like a little bit of flame in it, which is pretty cool. Like, I think off the shelf this guitar's only like $1,000 or something, so it's not USA, it's like Indonesian. Same electronics as the other one, but this is just a normal 3-way toggle. Which is cool to have like as well, because then you've got like a different middle sound to the other ones. 26.5-inch scale instead of 27, which I think sounds best for the tuning that this is in, which is a higher tuning than the other two. And I've replaced the saddles on the bridge to the Hipshot ones just because I wasn't really stoked on all of the stock hardware, because it is a lower end guitar. Like I was getting some like weird overtones. So I started playing guitar when I was about 11. I wanted to learn an instrument and I thought it was the coolest one. My uncle played guitar really well and I wanted to be cool like him, so I started playing guitar. My first guitar was an acoustic one. It was a pile of shit. About a year after that I got my first electric, and then I started having fun. When I first started playing guitar, I took lessons for a little bit, and then my guitar teacher rather, told me he didn't want to teach me anymore because I wasn't learning fast enough and I was too bad at the instrument. He pretty much told me I should quit. So that was like the biggest motivation I ever had. And from then onwards, I was mostly self-taught. Back then, I was listening to a lot of like hard rock music and like sort of the early nu metal bands that were coming out, like System of a Down was one of them, Slipknot. I used to jam like all those songs with my friends in a garage, and that's how I sort of started out, and I'm still a huge fan of that sound. There's been a couple of other players in particular that have really spoken to me through their music and influenced me as a guitar player. Especially I'd say David Gilmour. I love how expressive his playing is and how he uses all his effects so well and creates such amazing ambience with his guitar. My first band that I played in was just me and some friends from school, and the guy that I'm actually on tour with at the moment, who plays guitar in Hellions. And we used to jam in my friend's garage and just cover all sorts of different bands. The first show we ever played was a Limp Bizkit cover at my school assembly, and no one really liked it. I wonder why.